I can't remember the first impression I had of this place. I've been here long enough to have seen things and done things that made that impression irrelevant, I suppose. Time passes. What was that first impression? And who was I when I made it? Just as I'm no longer the same person, the Olympia of that first impression is gone also. Nothing lasts forever, but some things take longer to run their course. The past leaves its footprint. At once it's subtle, a bittersweet reminder of the delicacy and beauty of the human spirit in the world of amazement we've constructed. And then, the past confronts us in the eyes of the homeless forced to sleep in the doorways of abandoned buildings. It confronts us in the letters and words on the walls of those buildings scribbled with dissent, that coded language graffiti. Behind the words and acronyms lies a deeper message than their literal translations suggest, even if the artists themselves are unaware. Graffiti, the people's art. You don't need a canvas or a CP16 to write graffiti. You don't even need money for supplies if you steal a paint pen. All you need is a wall. Graffiti, the criminal act. Just like panhandling on the streets of Olympia, writing on the wall of the reef is against the law. This, while much larger crimes go unpunished, such as the state's failure to provide universal health care or the corporate crime that is downsizing. But that's for another day. What was your first impression when you saw those red letters painted onto the side of the old autos? I can't remember mine. November 13th, 2007. I was standing in a line with a group of people I had never met before. We were the second line of defense. The first had been the women's blockade, now almost completely loaded onto the inner city transit bus that would serve as their prison for the few hours until the protest was over. The police, decked out in so much riot gear they looked like some kind of giant alien ant people, awaited orders some 30 feet away. Finally, they began to move towards us as the anti-protest protesters cursed encouragement. One of the ants pushed me back with his baton, and then when I refused to move from that spot, he jabbed the end of it into the ribs above my left lung. Later in the night, all I could taste was the pepper spray, but that bruise lasted 2 weeks. Moments later, strikers were charging down a different street. They had tricked us. Hundreds of people rushed towards the flow of machinery, past the ditches where days earlier protesters were thrown by policemen. I was one of the first to arrive and linked arms with a number of other people so we could block the street. As the striker in front of us screeched to a halt 8 feet away, a mustached policeman stalked out of the night, brandishing an object that looked like the combination of a bullhorn and an aerosol can. I was the only one in the front line who didn't have goggles. Since the beginning of my time in Olympia, the reef has stood like the physical embodiment of Olympia culture. People from all walks of life could be found in the diner for breakfast, commiserating over $2.99 Pac-Mans and lukewarm coffee. At night, a motley crew gathered in the cramped, red neon-soaked bar to escape the cold Olympia winter. It's not that the reef was the nicest place with the best food or drink specials. It was special because it served as a social bridge between East and West. It was like a home away from home in Oli, the type of place that facilitates memorable nights, both good and bad. It was special because the people of Olympia met and sat and ate and drank, argued and laughed, fought and loved there. I went there when it was still red, tasting pepper spray on my lips and smelling it on my hoodie. I went there to feel sane again after that wonderfully tragic night. Fire is an apt metaphor for the world we live in. For instance, the grease fire that burned out the reef preceded the economic crash by no more than a few days, in a sly reference to Thomas Wolfe's epic novel You Can't Go Home Again.